Hello NetGhosts, my name is Phantom, and welcome to our first video on running Cyberpunk Red, as well as the first video on this channel. I have been running Cyberpunk Red for almost 5 years since its release in August of 2019, and I'm really excited to bring to you just some of my experience playing our favorite tabletop role-playing game on this channel. I will also be covering here other TTRPGs that I love, as well as the cyberpunk genre in general. But today's video is going to be about using life paths to elevate your game sessions, to enhance the drama, the intimacy, and the intrigue at your table, to make sure that those stories that you're telling are memories that you and your players get to cherish. Before we go any further, I just want to mention that if you don't know that much about life paths yet, then you're going to want to make sure that you've read the Tales from the Street section of the Cyberpunk Red core rulebook. I'm also going to link in the doobly-doo below Emeron's excellent video covering life paths and going through it in a more sequential order, talking about that kind of technical side, but also the dynamic between player and GM as your players are going through their life paths. When we are talking about life paths, really this comes down to one principle, which is keeping it personal. Your cyberpunk game should be centered on your PCs, and secondary to that, their interactions with this incredibly well realized world, the primary setting of which, of course, is Night City. Cyberpunk's life path system really can and probably should be the cornerstone of your experience at the cyberpunk table. There are two ways to use life paths at your table. One I call Synthesized Lifepath themes, and the other one I call Episodic Lifepath themes, and I'm going to go on to explain the difference between those here. In terms of Synthesized Lifepath themes, I really do believe that this approach is generally best for new groups and new players. You're going to use commonalities in your player characters' life paths, shared backgrounds, to create a common goal, hopefully a common enemy. In order to achieve this, it can be really helpful to encourage your player characters, especially during Session 0 of the campaign, to think about what kind of campaign they want this to be. Most often, this is going to be an Edgerunners campaign in which the players are taking the role of mercenaries, trying to survive in Night City, trying to get to that next highest contract. So get this conversation started early and try to determine what kind of shared background your player characters want to have. I'm going to give an example here. In one instance, your player characters might be a part of the same extended family, non-blood family of reclaimers, working to create a sustainable quality of life along the reclaimed perimeter of the city. It's quite possible that their family was flushed out by a corporation. Let's say Petrochem bought out all of the family farms and is trying to use that land to build a new research facility staffed with scientists who are going to conduct biofuel research in these facilities. Local organized militias may have risen up to combat this takeover, as you would expect, but in this case, they were no match for Petrochem's hired Ronin, who are armed with paramilitary gear and training. With just this little bit of background, you can already start to develop some sense of common goal amongst your players, and this could look like a few things even in this case. Your players could want to join another group of reclaimers to carry forward their original family's legacy. They could also make it their goal to find the corpo suits responsible and flatline them, end their existence. Classic revenge caper, classic cyberpunk material. In really any of these cases, whatever decisions your players are starting to talk about is going to make it pretty easy for you to start to craft a main plot, setting obstacles in the player's way, and deciding who are going to be the main players that threaten your characters. If you want a really good example of what a synthesized life path system looks like, I would look no further than John the Wise's video he just recently released going through his campaign notes for his recent campaign that took place in a rural area near Waco and Austin, Texas. He developed an incredible setting and a lot of players and factions that were going to play off of the players' goals and also challenge them in many interesting ways, with all of that political drama and intrigue that we want to see in our cyberpunk adventures. Next, I want to talk about those episodic life path themes. You're going to use episodic life path themes when you're running a serial style Gig of the Week campaign. In this case, elements of the player's life path themes are going to be woven intermittently into the gigs. They start to create a tapestry that weaves together all of the distinct episodic moments that you're going to have throughout this campaign. A really easy place to start when looking at your player's life paths in this case is that someone from your player's pasts is always going to be gunning for them. Also, your players probably have known a few not so much chooms in their past that they feel owe them a pound of flesh. And this is, again, just a really easy way to start incorporating that bit of drama into your game. So as you're going session to session, familiar names and places should be consistently cropping up in these gigs. Do not hesitate to replace a NPC or a faction with an NPC or faction that has immediate relevance to your players' life paths. In this way, you're going to challenge them to continue to develop their player character's identity. Who they were, who they are, and now who they are becoming in Night City as the world pushes back against them. I'm going to give a couple of anecdotes here. The first one is theoretical, something I just kind of came up with, and this is just how easy this whole thing is. Let's say the players are on a routine gig. They were hired by a fixer to conduct a smash and grab at a Raff and Shiv facility where they're housing, let's say, stolen Raven cybernetics prototypes. Now, as they go to investigate the site of the hit on the convoy conducted by this Raff and Shiv group, the players discover something. One of the players in particular stumbles across dog tags that they recognize. Dog tags of a former mentor who showed them the ropes and gave them their first crack shot at becoming a solo edgerunner in Night City. There is a problem here, though. These 4th Corporate War veteran war tags are covered in dry blood. Now, the player's not sure whose blood this is exactly, but you can be sure that they're going to want to find out. I want to encourage us to also be using these episodic life path moments in our pre-written adventures as well. This could be Tales of the Red street stories. This could be the upcoming Tales of the Red game focused on the Forlorn Hope. And this could also be the upcoming Cyberpunk Edgerunners mission kit. No matter how linear or no matter how seamed together these different beats or these different moments in these campaign episodes are, make sure that you're pulling from your player's life path to keep it personal. Because remember, in Night City, it's always personal. I want to add, before we move on from episodic life path themes, that when you're utilizing these, you still want to make sure that there is a main story objective that is constantly pressing its boot upon the back of your players' heads and breathing down their necks. That push-pull nature of the world really needs to be maintained for this to have the desperation that a cyberpunk game should. This main story objective could look like a lot of things, but it definitely needs to be threatening. It could be a mysterious individual or another group of rival netrunners that are just placing stumbling blocks in front of the players at every turn. When you start with this, you don't even necessarily, as the GM, need to know why they are doing this. Not for the first couple of gigs. In fact, sometimes it's better to wait and let the drama at your table begin to develop and find something fitting as you go. This could also be a grand debt owed to someone with a lot more rep in the city that, if they want to, could tarnish the players' reputations with the local fixers and destroy their opportunity to get gigs in the future. Of course, this could also just be something terrible. The ticking time bomb, the doom clock, that when it runs out is going to threaten to take away the player character's livelihood, their loved ones, or even their shared common collective project as a group. As we begin to move toward concluding this video, I also just want to remind us of one other really important thing to consider when you're running these games, which is don't forget about the importance of instilling that sense of paranoia and dread in your players and instilling your world with those feelings too. After all, the dark future does breed desperation for everyone, no matter how seemingly high on the totem pole you are. Whether you're a corpo who is down on their luck and you realize that you need to start not only gunning for your boss's desk, but also your boss's bosses too, or a freelance mercenary just bidding for those highest paying contracts, things can never be morally black and white. At the end of the day, friends or former friends might end up becoming obstacles. They might also, for their own reasons, be put in a situation where they feel that it is necessary to betray the players. Likewise, one of those real bad guys in a player character's backstories, put your player characters in a position where they have to ally with them temporarily to accomplish a common goal. They're going to grit their teeth through it, but later on, when they're able to finally clench their fists and get that pound of flesh that they've been hungering for, it is going to feel all the more satisfying. To give an example of this, you could have a corpo player at your table who's working for Continental Brands. Unfortunately for Continental Brands, there is a rival cereal production company that is beginning to rise up in the city and produce a new line of products called Nibble. Obviously, maybe a bit suspiciously derivative. And so that player character's executive boss is now going to task them with doing anything that they can to extort information and really through any means necessary. As we know, there is very little red tape when it comes to these kinds of applications with the Dark Futures corporations. The player character might just have one really obvious solution. You see, you as a GM were smart. You plugged in that life path. And it just so turns out that the player character's ex-lover, they recently took a job transition working for this upstart company. And, well, they still have that former lover's number in their agent. They're just a ping away. Also, if they're too difficult to reach, well, your player character still thinks they know where they live. That is going to wrap up our inaugural video discussing the use of life paths to elevate the drama, the excitement, the intrigue at your table. I hope this is useful to you. I would like to turn it over to you now and ask, how as a GM have you used life paths at your table? What was a really incredible moment of drama, of heartbreak, of excitement that was only possible because of that personal life path connection for your player and their character? But until we get the chance to speak again, I have been Phantom. Please stay safe out there on those mean streets, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.